Hi, Josh. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad here. Where are you calling in from?
We are, and I am based in Provo, Utah, so in the Rocky Mountains, United States.
Awesome. So, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, happy to. I'll try to be brief. So, Josh Weber, co-founder, CEO of Big Red Jelly. We are a creative agency, and we can talk as much as you like about kind of what we do or my thoughts and opinions on what I think is a very volatile space. Right, we play at the crossroads of creative and technology in the marketing realm, and I would have it no other way. It's very busy, it's very fun. But a little bit about me, I've been in the agency space my entire professional career. So I've worked in big agencies, I've worked in small agencies, I've dabbled in everything from your traditional digital marketing, SEO, online advertising, PPC, email marketing, content marketing, brand campaigns, brand strategy. And 7 years ago, my co-founder and I, we just kind of had that entrepreneurial seizure, as sometimes it's said, right?
Uh-huh.
Where we wanted to break off and start our own team and company because we thought we could do it better. And so far, it's been awesome, and we're growing, and I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. Josh, real quick, one of the things that kind of caught my eye is I noticed that you guys are called Big Red Jelly. Where's that come from?
Yeah, it's a question I get pretty often. I never get tired explaining. So the brief answer is, like I mentioned, there's a lot of agencies out there.
Hmm.
And in my experience working at agencies, I learned a lot, but especially when you start to work at the higher level and you're working on, Fortune 500 company brands and marketing campaigns, there is a lot of fluff. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and that leads to bloated pricing and poor communication, lack of transparency. So when my co-founder and I set off to start our agency, and it's kind of the fun phase, right? It's like, what's our name going to be? What's our logo? That's the fun part, at least for men. We just knew that the core values and kind of the brand promise we wanted to build this agency on was transparency and efficiency, right? You can get world class creative at a boutique level price with top notch personal service. And I'm a big National Geographic fan. And so at that particular time, I received an email from Nat Geo. This was 7 years ago, well, almost 8 years ago, that they just discovered the red jellyfish off the coast of Japan. It's a new species of jellyfish. It was red. And the jellyfish is the world's most efficient animal in terms of what it consumes and the energy it puts out into the ocean. So redjelly.com was taken by some foodie blogger in the UK, someone who makes jello. So we went with Big Red Jelly, and that's been our mascot ever since. So our team, has really kind of fallen in love with that. And it allows me to tell a story behind the name, which hopefully it makes it a little bit more memorable. So there you go.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the most unique names I've ever heard. I have to give that one to you. That's really cool.
It does have some cons, right? It's like, I get asked if we make jelly beans or we make jam or, what we do. So I do have to get used to telling that story. But yeah, we decided to err on the side of let's be totally different and a little bit bizarre, but we like it. And so that's the brand.
Better than better.
Yeah.
So, what does Big Red Jelly do?
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of entrepreneurs and marketers will sympathize with this. It's like constantly trying to
Mhm.
craft our elevator pitch, right? It's like, okay, there's a million marketing agencies out there.
Right.
At our core, we're a brand agency. We're really trying to evangelize, especially to small and mid-sized businesses, that your brand is everything. My definition of what a brand is, by the way, is the perception that your ideal customer has of what you do, right? It's your reputation. So everything you do in your company is either building the brand or breaking it down in a bad way. So we're a branding agency and we lead with the brands. There's a lot of marketing agencies out there, but we really lean into how do you build a strong brand? How do you manage that brand? How do you scale that brand? So that's what we are. We're a branding agency that helps companies grow and build strong brands.
And can you walk us through this process? I saw on your website that you guys have this brand build grow process. So what is that?
You've done you've done your research. I like that.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So although our name is a little ambiguous and different, our tagline is very practical. We felt like we needed those two parts. So our tagline is brand build grow. And that's our formula, right? That's our proven process at a very simplified level. Brand, then build, then grow, which unfortunately, especially for small businesses and entrepreneurs, we tend to jump straight to grow and we don't really know what our brand is. So if you go one level deeper from that, we flesh out our proven process in a pretty detailed fashion. It goes brand, content, build, strategy, grow. And then in each of those phases, we have what we call chapters. We've got 10 chapters in brand, 5 in content, 10 in build, 5 in strategy, 10 in grow. I'm a big, big, big believer. And look, we're in the creative field. And unlike what many people say, I think processes allow you to be more creative. They're not mutually exclusive, right? So I think having good processes and parameters actually empower the creative juices. So we're big on process, big on process.
Yeah, what does that look like? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah. So, like, let's say brand, for example, right? Brand with 10 chapters, and more than happy to email. The first 3 chapters are brand discovery and brand research, and then what we call the guiding idea, which is synonymous with your brand strategy or direction. And so many times, like, will ask me, Josh, I'm not getting enough leads. I'm not getting enough sales. Like, you're ask most business owners, I bet 9 out of 10 times they're going to say they want more revenue. They want more leads. They want more customers. They want more recurring revenue. And what I'm trying to evangelize is, and in my experience doing this for 15 years, if 99% of the time, if I reverse engineer a revenue issue or profit issue, I almost always get back to the brand. Again, that perception, right? Who are you? Who are you serving? What do you offer? And why is it different than anyone else? And how do you offer it, right? What's your proven process? And so it's so easy and it's such a temptation for business owners, entrepreneurs, marketers to just turn up the ad spend. And I see that a lot. And yes, that will fix many of your issues, right? Like, go ramp up your Google ad budget. But what I say is, and I warn entrepreneurs, Google will take your money and not ask any questions, right? Same with Meta, same with LinkedIn. No offense to these platforms out there, right? Like, we use them. But if you haven't really clarified your brand, you're going to lead to these symptoms, which are inefficient ad spend. Your conversion rates are probably going to be subpar. Your recurring revenue is not going to be where it should be. Your sales team is fighting an uphill battle. Your marketing will be inconsistent, and inconsistencies just lead to a breakdown in trust, especially for small to mid-sized business owners, entrepreneurs. Like, have to get the brand right. So those 10 chapters are designed to clarify and lock down exactly what is your brand, and then everything else gets a lot better and easier, ultimately saving you money, making more money, right? So that's why brand is phase one.
Hmm.
It's like, let's not just go rebuild the website. Let's not go up with a creative marketing campaign. Let's not ramp up your ad spend until I clearly identify what your brand is all about. And more often than not, just the process itself is enlightening, right? We can talk about the deliverables, like what are the practical things that you get, but just going through that process is something that I think should be an ongoing process for all business owners, constantly going through what is my brand, who's my ideal customer, who are my competitors, what's trending, what's our brand position. If I was to ask most small business, hey, what's your brand positioning? A lot of people don't know how to answer that. I don't blame them either, right? So we've got exercises that we do that help companies do that.
That's super interesting. So, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was you talked about this contrast between building and breaking down your brand. What are some examples of this? What does that look like?
Yeah, I can give several. Because a lot of times I often say that small business owners or marketers, when I look at the data, most times they're suffering from indigestion, not starvation. Meaning, when I really look at if they have a CRM, which that's a whole other thing, like, if I really look at how much awareness they have, how many leads they have, how much potential revenue they have, it's actually significant, but they're not doing a great job of nurturing that. The client experience or customer experience is subpar. There's a reason that we have such a high level of trust with brands like Amazon, Starbucks, McDonald's. Let's use McDonald's as an example. Their brand promise isn't that they have the best burger. They know they don't, right? It's not. It's not even the cheapest burger sometimes. Their brand promise is consistency, right? Whether you get a Big Mac here in Utah or in Japan or at midnight or at noon, you're getting the same Big Mac and you expect the same Big Mac. And so that consistency is what builds trust. And that's what I see with small businesses. I had an experience with a local plumbing company, I won't name who, but I had a plumbing issue. And I love when I get to interact with small businesses, even if despite my leaking pipes, which was a nightmare. I just like seeing what's that experience from beginning to end. So the website was pretty good. Like I booked a call or I booked an appointment where they came out to inspect the issue. So as I'm saying this story, by the way, you translate to your own business, right? He showed up on time. It was all good. Inspected the issue, gave me a quote. I said yes to the quote. He came back and fixed the issue and I never got an invoice. And so I
Hmm.
had to remind them, like, hey, I'm willing and ready to pay, if I can get that invoice. And they're like, oh, I apologize. Here's the invoice. And then I paid the invoice, of course. But then there was no follow up after that. Right. So think about like, okay, that might not seem like a big deal. But if I'm talking to a small business owner, if you draw out your entire customer experience from start to end, what
Hmm.
are all the touch points? Here's what I think they should have done better, right? Let's say first, send the invoice, right? Secondly, like, where's the text message in the email where it asks me for a review if I enjoyed my experience, right? Are they going to reach out to me 6 months from now and say, hey, Josh, it's been 6 months. How are your pipes doing? It's time for a checkup, right? Where's the message where it says, hey, thanks again for trusting us with your business? By the way, did you know we also do HVAC and electrical? It's
Right.
better to prevent than to fix. So it's 50% off if we come and do an inspection. So you see what I mean by we're suffering from indigestion, not starvation. And so there's potential for them to have me, and I do real estate on the side. There's potential for them to sign me up on some form of retainer for all of my properties, right? So the bigger brands have this locked in. E-commerce, same issue, right? Like big e-commerce brands, abandoned carts are set up. You purchase a product, you're already enrolled in their master email nurture campaign. They're sending you branded touch points every couple months or every month. They've got discounts and promotions happening every season. So small businesses can follow these models and get that locked in. If you're brick and mortar, if you're a restaurant, right? When I say my pleasure, I say, which brand is that? People say Chick-fil-A. It's like that's part of the brand, right? So we're either having a positive experience or a negative experience. And
Hmm.
I do want to say this, like if you're a small business owner and say, well, I don't have that many negative experiences, we're pretty good. Then I would challenge them with, well, how consistent is your service and your product and your offering? Are you inconsistent, right? Is your visual identity like, do you guys have different polos you're wearing? Is your logo different over here than it is over here? Is the communication inconsistent? Is your social media inconsistent? We all have a friend who's flaky and inconsistent. Do we trust that friend? No. Right. So be that consistent small business brand. And there's so many ways to do that. So you can see the brand like bleeds into the customer experience. Again, last thing also, like if you're a restaurant owner, what does it look like when someone opens the door and comes into your store? Are they greeted? How soon are they greeted? What does the pathway look like to the cashier? Is there an upsell or cross sell opportunity where they ask, hey, do you want to make this a combo? McDonald's, right? Do you want a biggie size that? I think they
Exactly.
stopped doing that after the movie. But like there was a statistic that McDonald's made billions of dollars from just asking, do you want fries with that?
Right.
Man, at breweries do a good job. If you like local breweries, if you go into a local brewery that's well operated, they do a good job of having like pretty cool merch right up at the front, right?
Right.
So I have a cool experience. There's the local beer. I'm on my way out. Oh, there's a hat right there. There's a t-shirt. That's cool. They make a lot of revenue from that. So that's all part of the brand. What's the experience?
And also talk about the importance of following up and communication after the sale as well, right? So do you think that's where a lot of people go wrong? Is that they fail to see that gap in being able to go and actually build a relationship with the customer?
100%, right? And maybe this is where you guys have some expertise, but with marketing technology, a lot of what I just said is very strategic, very theoretical, sure. When it comes to practical and technical, one of the first things I like to ask is, do you have a CRM? And sometimes I might get a response like, what's a CRM? Say, oh my goodness, right? So I have a client we're working on with right now. It's a construction company, $100 million construction company. They do projects around the country, even outside the country. They've got a sales team of a dozen guys. And I went and visited them for a discovery session and I asked what their CRM is, and they did not have a CRM. Each sales guy was using a different system. They all followed up in different ways. Very successful. So again, you might be thinking, Josh, my revenue is great, my sales are great. Well, it might be great despite your lack of CRM setup. Like you could be doing a lot more. You're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. So if you're overwhelmed, there's some really simple CRMs out there, right? There's some really simple CRMs. The first step I recommend is step one, choose a CRM. That's step one. Step two is just go through the pretty simple process of making sure that any interactions that you get. So someone fills out a form, someone engages a live chat, someone calls your company, your salesperson is networking at a trade show. Get all of those contacts into one central source of truth. Like that's what's most important. Then from there, the fun begins, right? Now, how do we nurture these people? How do we reach out to these people? How do we run campaigns? But a lot of people want to do that. They want to run a crazy marketing campaign. I'm like, well, where's your database of contacts, right? So you've got to be building that. And you'd be surprised how many contacts, leads, companies you actually do encounter each and every day as a small business owner. You've got to be filtering those into one place. You know what I mean? So yeah, step one, get a CRM, start using it.
You're mentioning CRMs a lot. Is this something that you guys also do?
We do, yeah. But we try to be very flexible with it, right? So some marketing agencies will say, we're Salesforce, no offense to Salesforce, this is the CRM. And they'll probably over recommend it to companies where that's not a good fit. So we like to keep our eyes and ears always open. Sometimes a client will say, we already have a CRM. I'll say, great, we're going to use that. Well, I'll ask, like, do you like that CRM? Is it working for you? More often than not, they do like it, but a common question is like, I don't think we're getting all the value from it. And that's true. It's like, okay, you're paying X amount per month. You're not using these features. It's not set up properly. So we really try to use a CRM that they are going to adopt, like a diet, right? Like, what's the best diet? The short answer is one that you can stick with, right? So it's like, what's the best CRM? One that you can stick with and use correctly. You know what I mean? So I would say too, like industry specific CRMs are helpful as well, right? There are CRMs that are great for home service companies like plumbers or electricians. And there are some CRMs that tend to work better in that niche. Sometimes I see clients that are overpaying for a CRM. Uh, Sometimes I see a client that's growing really quickly, but they're on a super simple one that I think they're going to outgrow pretty soon. And we say it might be wise to visit other technologies, right? So choosing the right CRM is really key, and I love to have those conversations.
Awesome. And going deeper into your process in a way, what have been some of the biggest recent successes that you guys have seen?
There's been a few. I'll name one on the brand side. So this is a challenge that we encounter from time to time, but just shows the importance of the brand. So we're working with a really large engineering firm, and they're across the country. Their challenge was they were merging with another engineering firm, kind of two top dogs in the space. And that's a big brand challenge. Like, how do we do this? And so they wanted to use that as an opportunity, which was smart, to create a new brand, right? Because they had the old name A, old name B. They're merging together. It was an opportunity to create a new brand that they felt like represented both groups because they each brought some positives to the table. So our brand team just knocked it out of the park. But to be honest with you, I tell our brand team, I'm like, we don't really use the phrase come up with. We're going to come up with a brand for you. The brand is them. Going back to what I just said, what are their core values? What's their vision 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now? What are their unique value propositions? And then our job is just to help craft that into a compelling message, visual identity, logo, website, marketing strategy. But it's got to come from them, right? Otherwise, and I see that so much, or people might go on Fiverr or Upwork and be like, create a brand guide for me. Looks really cool, but how much of that is like your DNA? I'd much rather have an authentic brand. So that was a really big success. We're wrapping it up right now. Uh, and I just could not be happier with the team. And the client was great. Client was very open, transparent, authentic, and that makes our job easier.
That's great to hear. And a phrase that I like to use a lot is there's two sides to a coin, right? So on the opposite side to those successes, there's definitely going to be some challenges that you guys are facing. So what are those big challenges that you guys have been seeing recently?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. So From a practical standpoint, when it comes to branding, one of the big practical challenges we bump into is like, let's say we're working with a new company and we have our discovery session, which is the first very important call with them once they, start work. If it's a big company and it's a big brand, but I see that the decision makers aren't on the call, it's a big red flag, because I see that so many times where we'll start working and then we get toward the end or the middle of the brand phase. And then all of a sudden the CEO kind of sees the progress and is like, oh, I have an opinion here. And then all of a sudden we have to pivot, right? Or we have to increase the scope. So, but we do a better job now of early, we'll say, hey, we need the decision makers on this call. We've got to get their thoughts and feelings, which just as feedback for anyone who's listening who is a decision maker, like take your brand seriously. No offense to marketers out there, but it's not something that you just delegate to your marketing manager and say, hey, I want you to rebrand us or I want you to take this on. Like the brand has got to come from the top and then it bleeds through. Not to mention, so much gets lost in translation when it goes from our strategy. We communicate it to the marketing person over there. They try to communicate it to their boss. That boss communicates it to the CEO, and then they say no. So that's something. And then the other thing, too, just from like a higher level in terms of challenge, I think when it comes to like agencies, we try to stay at the forefront. So we have a recurring process we call innovate or die. And so the biggest challenge for me as a CEO of an agency is how do we constantly innovate, especially with AI, right? And trends and what's hot in marketing and design. Like I said, I can't think of two more volatile industries than technology and creative. So my biggest challenge is how do we constantly innovate and stay at the cutting edge while not giving our team whiplash or burnout, where it's like, now we're changing this, now we're using this, now we're using this. So I think at its core, what you have to do is just create a culture where people like to innovate, right? It won't work here at Big Red Jelly if you like to just kind of stay put and have your way of doing things. It won't work. You know what I mean?
And how are you guys working on that? How are you guys staying ahead, staying on that forefront of the AI shift that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we try. It comes back to process. It's like we basically force it into our process. So, our COO, for example, who's much more technically savvy than me, he has a monthly innovate or die meeting where he meets with our client services leadership and he says, okay, what are the big things that are happening? They have a debate, they have discussion, and they deploy them. So, like regularly scheduled brainstorm sessions. But one of the core kind of messages of that meeting is we're not married to any partner, any technology, any trend. Like you go into that meeting, there are no bad ideas, and everything is at stake. You know what I mean? So you might be a marketing agency, like, well, we build websites on Squarespace. Like when we go into that, we don't, but sometimes we dabble. We go into those meetings, we're like, we're not married to any technology. So you can kind of force innovation in by having these processes. And then we have others too, where we've got rocks, big priorities for our teams. And one of those big priorities every quarter has to be innovation focused, right? So for our sales team, for example, one of their rocks for next quarter is to do a workshop and training on how to use the new AI feature in HubSpot. And that's a required thing. So we're always innovating, we're always pushing. And yeah.
And do you guys find yourselves having a deeper focus on the internal or the external?
Mm.
You guys have a good balance of both, in your opinion.
I think we start internally because I think agencies are kind of in the trenches. Like we're using technology all the time. We're designing things. We're bumping it. I mean, we work with 50 clients in any given month, and so we're hearing and seeing firsthand 50 different challenges every month. There's a reason that so many tech companies are spun off from agencies because you start to see these patterns. So we do focus internally first, like what's a tool we can use, or maybe our SEO lead Natalie. She's like, hey, I just found a really cool new AI tool on how to help me with keyword research. And I created a cool prompt and I use these tools together and it does this for me. And then the rest of our team says, wow, that's awesome. That's going to save me 5 hours a month. So then we start using it and adopting it. It works. Then maybe we present to the client, say, hey, by the way, there's this new thing. So I think it has to start internally and then it bleeds across into clients and customers, right? Almost like a restaurant. Again, it's like if you watch, I love watching like Michelin star documentaries.
Mhm.
A lot of time by the head chef is spent on recipe development, right? Late at night or early in the morning, they're they're constantly developing new recipes, new ingredients, new places to source. So talk about an industry that's been around since the beginning of time.
Hmm.
But in order to be at the top of the game, you've got to be innovating
Right.
constantly. So I love that, you know?
So you guys have this very interesting cycle then I'd say. Like you guys are all learning from each other.
Mm,
Because what I'm hearing here is that you guys learn from your clients, test that internally, and then you guys roll that out, what's working to your other clients, right?
yeah, 100%.
While we're kind of on that topic, what are some innovations that you guys are making? Anything that you guys are working on, coming out with?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, there's some really practical things that happen on a quarterly basis. For example, my co-founder, he created a WordPress plugin. It's called Preserve UTMs. So for those in the marketing space, you have UTMs, which basically help track when someone lands on your website from an ad. I could go into that detail, but that's how you track attribution. It's how you track where the revenue or the leads are coming from. But one problem that happens with that, if I click onto a website to buy shoes and it takes me to the homepage, if I click into another page, sometimes that UTM drops off and so it stops tracking me. And so then when they see the lead, they see Josh, they say, well, we don't know where this guy came from because he explored multiple pages. So he just created a simple plugin using ChatGPT and WordPress that preserves that UTM no matter how many pages I click through so that you can track the attribution from there. And now he's selling it on our website, and a lot of marketers are buying it because it's like, this is a problem we have all the time. Now, that feature might be available in some CRMs or some tracking platforms, but why not package it and brand it in a different way for the WordPress ecosystem? So that's one example. And then our brand team on the other side is currently working on an AI powered brand audit, right? There's a lot of like CEO audit tools out there, keyword tools, ad tools, a lot on the technical kind of analytical marketing side, but there's not a lot on the creative side because it's so subjective. So we're trying to create kind of an AI powered brand audit. It's like, well, how good and clear is your brand? But it includes a little bit of the human element because I think that's necessary. It's not going to be 100% AI. I just don't think that would work because you're not selling to AI, you're selling to humans. Yeah, that's currently in the works.
And these are technologies that you guys also sell on your website.
Yeah, some of them we sell, some of them we just use for our own benefit, right? And then makes our job easier and better and more clear. Like that brand audit, if once we get it done, that's going to be something we'll send to our potential clients. Say, hey, you're not sure if your brand is clear. Take our audit and let's see, right? So yeah, some things we might sell, some things we won't.
That's interesting. So we've talked about your business for a while now, but if we zoom out from that, in your experience, what are some trends that you're currently seeing in the industry? What are any recent developments that have caught your attention?
There's the obvious one, which I won't speak about, AI, right? I think there's plenty of stuff out there. I'll speak to something a little bit more interesting and fun, which is again in the brand space. There's a lot of overlap. I'm not a fashion nova. Please do not think I am. My friends make fun of me for my dress and appearance, in casual attire. But there is a lot of overlap between branding, design, and what's happening in the food industry and the fashion industry, the graphic design industry, the art industry. Let me just say this. We went through from 2010 to 20 to now, maybe even before 2010, we kind of went through this minimalist, sterile. I'm going to offend a lot of people, but it's true. I'm just kind of tech focused branding, right? Think about your favorite logos, and they're very minimalist. There's a lot of white space. Everything's very simple, very clean. Think about sans serif fonts. Those are fonts that don't have like curves, right? Like, and it's funny. You can see so many case studies of like the Pringles logo was like a happy, jolly guy with a mustache, and then they got rid of the mustache, and they're like, "What happened to the Pringles guy?" It's like, "Oh, we're going minimalist." It's like, who told you that? That's just what everyone's doing because I think tech companies were so at the forefront and it was new, it was novel. It was like, oh, we want to look modern. But now that the industry is so saturated with tech and AI and modernity, I'm seeing smart brands, especially small businesses, lean back into the opposite maximalism, artistry, organic, human, serif fonts, hand drawn logos. That's what will make you stand out now, right? So think about like all the water companies you look at and their logos. You can picture it. It's a clear bottle blue and green,
Right.
and probably some sort of circular logo with
Hmm.
a name that has aqua in it, right? And then you look at liquid death, and that's different, right? So, especially for small to mid sized businesses, people crave the artisanal, handcrafted, organic feel in a world of AI. So, lean into that. That's what I see.
Interesting. And then what are some challenges that you're seeing opposed to that?
I think it's the fear, it's like, oh, but these big brands are doing it. And I say it's one of the biggest mistakes I see small brands make is copying the big brands, right? You don't have the same budget. You don't have the same audience. You don't have the same tenure. You don't have the same awareness. What works for them will not work for you. You're just going head to head with someone who has 100, 1,000, 10,000 times the budget that you do. Don't do it. I say this for like e-commerce brands. If I'm working with an e-commerce brand and I'm like, what are your unique value propositions? What makes you different? And they say, well, price and we're going to ship really fast. But great. So you're going to lose to Amazon and probably to Walmart and probably to Target and Etsy while we're at it. So instead, like, why don't you lean into things that Amazon can't do, right? You only ship X amount of products. There should be a handwritten card from the founder, you, in every single package. You should send personal follow-ups to each customer. You should lean into that artisanal feel. If I pick up the phone and call Amazon, Jeff Bezos most likely is not going to answer the phone. If I call your e-commerce brand, you are, and that's really cool. So do that. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of the fear, and there's a reason that after COVID, farmers markets were at an all-time high because people craved and missed the local feel, and they're willing to pay more for it. So the numbers don't lie.
And going off that, what are some moves that these small businesses can make to go and leverage where they are as compared to these big brands for their growth?
I think the first step is like the Pareto principle, right? Like the 80-20 rule. Pick up the phone, send some text, send some emails to the 20% of your customer base that's responsible for 80% of your revenue, right? We all have that 20%. We all have those customers that are liking every social media post. They keep coming back for more. They've been customers for 5 years plus. When's the last time you took them out to lunch or hopped on a phone call? Get away from the data. Google Analytics and these surveys, great. But like, let's get some qualitative data and genuinely ask them, like, why do you choose us? I guarantee that you'll have some predispositions, you'll have some ideas, a hypothesis on why you think your company's great or your product, but they'll say something totally different and lean into that, right? You might think that it's this feature that you have, but in reality, no, it was the customer service, or it was the way that they felt when they checked out, or it was the particular design. And the answers are going to be in the interviews and the conversations you have with your tribe. Yeah.
I have to say that is probably one of the most unique pieces of advice I've ever heard. Because most advice, I feel like when you hear it, you hear a lot about it was like you were saying earlier, right? Scale up the campaigns. And
Yeah.
here you are, you're talking more about this focus on really building relationships and leveraging that as a small business. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. We just see so many campaigns out there where I scratch my head from big brands and I'm like, did they even talk to their customer? You know what I mean? Like, wow, we missed the boat. And again, you have that advantage as a small business owner because you're probably much closer to your customer than Elon Musk is with his, than Jeff Bezos is with his. Like, you're on the ground floor interacting with your customers every day. So you have a unique advantage
And going on this topic of advice, what's the most overrated piece of advice you've encountered recently?
there. Ooh, that's a good one. Man, I don't know. I feel like I get good advice. I feel like I get pretty good advice from people. I've got great mentors. I think I don't know what the opposite of this advice is, but really this won't really answer your question. But maybe people can think of the opposite. But I really like, the older I get, the more I do this. I'm going to pull a page from Good to Great, which is like, you've got to first identify, like, what are the seats on your bus, like what are
Mhm.
the roles that your company, and sometimes as an entrepreneur you have to fill four, five, six of those roles. You have six, seven, eight different hats. But man, I cannot emphasize like having the right people. You know what I mean? I think I did read a book or something where it was like, if your processes are perfect, doesn't matter who your people are. It's like, no, man, I've seen you can have the perfect process, perfect product market fit, perfect marketing campaign, but like, if you don't have the right people It's like so hard. So just get the right people. And shout out to, we've worked really hard to get to where we are now, and everyone here is a killer. We all share the same values, and it makes life so much easier.
Well said. All right. Well, thank you, Josh. It was great having you on. You brought like some really unique insight to this, and you brought a very unique perspective that I absolutely loved. So thanks for coming on. It was great having you on.
Thanks for bearing with me. I love to just kind of blabber on, but this was fun. I love it. So hopefully there was some helpful stuff.
Yeah, there was. Thanks.
Thank you.
As we end today's episode of Making Martech, we'd like to thank all our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share this and subscribe to our show so you don't miss the next one. I'm your host, Himnish Jindal, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.